Okay, guys, and we are back. So, just want to do a quick recap. Last week was mostly about how my parents met, my grandparents on my dad's side, mostly because I lived in Sacramento till the age of 10. So, they were a big part of my life during the first 10 years of my life. And then once I moved, things kind of changed from there. But just, covering what we talked about there, just some homelessness that we experienced when we lived in Sacramento, and then also we went over how Justin, my brother, became to be part of our family because he's not biologically my mom's. So lived in Sacramento. Grandparents on my dad's side lived there as well. My grandmother worked with my mom. My dad and mom met in my mom's place of work, thanks to my brother. He did a little introduction, made a love connection one time, because that's all it took, and the magic happened. And then started, when I left you guys off last week, it was really getting into Justin and how Justin came into our life. Sorry, I'm messing with my leg. It is very irritated today. But moving on from that, so when we lived in Sacramento, my grandparents lived in Maricopa. My mom's parents, John and Ann. John is not biologically my grandfather. Him and my grandma married when my mom was like 15, but he was my grandpa my whole life until he passed away. So he was the guy that always took my brother and I, my grandmother, our whole family in, dealt with everybody's bullshit. Both of my uncles, my mom had an older brother, Bob, and a younger brother that went by Toby. And my grandpa took on both of my mom's siblings and my mom as younger kids and helped raise them, and never once made us not feel like family. He was the guy that truly I looked up to. He was very good to my family. He spoiled the shit out of me. I was born 2 days after his birthday, so he always looked at me as his birthday present. So I was born September 14th, and he was born September 12th. So 2 days after his 50th birthday, I was born, and I was like his first baby in the family, because the other kids came along, before me, and I was the youngest. So my Uncle Bob lived in Maricopa, or in Taft already. And my cousins, Robbie, Jason, and Adam, are all my Uncle Bob's sons. And then my mom had Audie, Justin, and they're all pretty much the same age as my 3 older boy cousins. So everybody, the closest one to me was Adam, and he's 5 years older than me as well. So no one was really close to my age growing up. I had 5 boys to contend with, and I was the Lone Ranger girl. And being so little, I was just a fucking pest, and, they didn't want me around all the time. So I grew up with 5 boys, if that tells you anything else about my personality and the way that I act and speak and am sometimes. They had a big influence on me. They protected me a lot, but they also kicked my ass a lot. And didn't leave a whole lot out when it came to treating me any different than any of the rest of them were treated. So it was an experience, to say the least, but I am appreciative of it now, because it helps me, later on in life, kind of being toughened up by the boys and whatever. So in the summers, my grandparents, while we were still living in Sacramento, would come up and grab us, like I mentioned in the last episode, and we would travel. My grandparents had a few motorhomes, a littler one and then a bigger one, and so we would travel all over. It was awesome. I mean, I can't even begin to explain all of the places we went. We went to Oregon, Washington State. We've been to Arizona, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico. Let me see, Colorado. I mean, just all over the Midwest. Spent a lot of time in Missouri during the summer. Had some cousins that were actually my grandfather's side of the family, so I'm not even in touch with any of them anymore. I don't even know their freaking names, because when we were there, you know what I mean? You think your grandparents are going to be around forever, so you aren't asking everybody's last name and all of those types of things. And so lost touch with those people after things with my family fell apart. But it just kind of sucks that we didn't have social media or anything like that back then to be able to keep in touch with people like that. And since biologically they aren't related to me, I don't really know how to track them down. And my grandpa didn't have any kids of his own biologically, so we didn't have a blended family in that sorts. Like, we were his only family. So but we got to go, to the Grand Canyon. My grandparents would take us fishing. We went to White Sands, New Mexico. We've been to the big trees up in Northern California, in Oregon. The redwoods, in California are some of my favorite places that they ever took us, and we went there often. And it was just, if you've never been, go. It's magical. Any of the redwoods in California, bomb to them, go to them, be one with them, smell them, love them. I like them a lot. So that, and my during the summers, it was crazy. So my grandpa had a 34-foot motorhome. That was the bigger motorhome. And he would drive that motherfucker. Drunk, you guys. He just, no other way to put it. He'd be drunk. So grandpa would start drinking. It's summertime. It's hot, right? So my grandpa was this little dude. But could drink like he was a catfish. Like, he was just drinking. We called him a catfish for all kinds of reasons, but he was a drinking. So he would start drinking around 10 a.m. no matter what state we were in. It was hot. That's about time he started transitioning out of coffee into natty lights, baby. And you're going to hear my dogs bark every once in a while. I'll try to keep it to a minimum, but I'm not out there and they're not in here. They're out there. Anyways, so he would drink the whole time. He'd be like, hey, Shauna, Audie, Ann, get me a beer. So he'd drink out of these styrofoam cups and just straight cracking beers. And he would drive for, his limit was about 500 miles in a day. That would be the max he would drive in a day. And it would take us, a hot minute, because he drove pretty much the speed limit, probably because he was fucking hammered. I don't know. Thank you, Grandpa. But anyways, their motorhome was pretty legit, especially for the 80s, like super legit. Had a huge dash in the front with, the gigantic ass window. So I would lay up there in the dash and just fucking cruise down the highway on to the next destination. Grandpa blasting his natties, grandma in the back making us lunch, bouncing off the walls because grandpa's hammered, fucking driving like a maniac, probably. I don't know. No, he didn't drive like a maniac. He drove like a drunk. Woo! The good old days. So yeah, I would just color, and we would just bomb around the Midwest and have the greatest times. Went to White Sands, New Mexico. Went to the caverns in New Mexico. Went to the Four Corners. Standing in all 4 states at one time. When you're a little kid, you think that is the shit. So got to experience some really cool stuff. Really, to this day, I mean, I've traveled a lot as an adult, but to this day, I've never traveled as much as I did with my grandparents as a child, and got to see so much and experience so much and learn and be exposed. And my mom's parents were insanely cool in so many ways. My grandpa was a super insanely hard worker, a vet, so retired out of the service, and then went to work for, when he moved to Maricopa, he got a job with the city, and he was working for the trash man. He was a trash man. So I don't really remember. I have some pictures on the trash truck when I was little, but I don't really remember him working there. They were basically retired when I really start having some good memories of going and being with them and traveling with them and going to all these different states. We had a lot of pictures. My grandparents did take a lot of pictures, so I do have a lot of pictures from our adventures when I was young, which was really cool. And then my brother would come, but then once I started turning like 7, 8, he stopped coming on the summer vacations because he's, a teenager at this point, and he has Justin now. And so him and Justin stay in Sacramento, stay with my mom during the summers, and I start traveling with my grandparents alone. And so sometimes they would pick me up from school, kind of right after school would get out. They would come get me and then pick me up, and we would typically either come back to their house in Maricopa, or they would pick me up and we would go bouncing up to a different state to visit family. So we would go all around and visit different family members in different states, and that's what we were doing. We weren't just traveling to see the cool stuff. We were traveling to actually see different family members. So this is where I'll kind of get into my mom's parents a little bit more. And we called my grandpa John. My mom's dad, Vern, had passed away from previous episode. Remember when I was 4. So John, everybody, like my mom called him dad. My uncles called him dad. We called him grandpa, all of my cousins and I called him grandpa. So like he was our dude. And, we would go visit everyone he was related to, so many people we were related to. My mom's mom, Anne, was the youngest of 19 children between her and my grandfather, my great grandfather. When they got together, they had kind of yours, mine, ours. My grandmother, Anne, was the youngest of 19 with my great grandparents on my maternal side. So my great grandmother had my grandma when she was 49 years old, and my grandma was the baby. And my grandma grew up, having siblings that were in their 30s, way older than her. They grew up way back she was born in, goodness, I'm a terrible person. Not as terrible as her though. We'll get to that in a minute. I don't know. She was born in the 30s, I believe. Maybe in the 40s. But no, she couldn't have been born in the 40s because my mom's born in 53. She was born in the late 30s. So my mom's mom, Anne, had my Uncle Bob. He's the oldest. He was born, I believe, in 50 or 51. And then my grandmother also had many miscarriages. She was also pregnant 8 times, just like my mom was, which I thought was really weird and crazy. But she had, next to my mom was born in 53. And then next she had my uncle Toby, who was the youngest, and he was born in 56, I believe, 55 or 56. So they were all about 2.5 years apart. My mom and Toby had the same biological parents, which was my grandma Ann and my grandpa Vern, that is dead at this point. And so my grandmother grew up in a house of, from everything I understand, my mom did know her grandparents, and she grew up in a house of love. Her grandfather, he went by Whitey, and he was supposedly a super just sweet man, lived in Seaside, lived in the Monterey area. That's where my mom was at some points in her life, being an army brat because her biological dad was in the army. So she moved all around. So my grandmother would be back and forth with my grandfather. And then when she got with my grandpa John, she would also they would come and be in Monterey. And that's where a lot of my grandmother's siblings, my grandmother's parents lived. And so Monterey and Seaside area is a big home hub for us when we were all a big family unit, because my grandmother was, being the youngest of 19, she was, we had a huge family. And at this point, we talked to everyone. Not everyone, but a lot of people. We had aunts and uncles all over that area. We would go, we would have family reunions, different things, and things were good. And so, this is where I guess I should have given a little warning at the beginning of this episode. This is where things start to get real hairy for me, and this is where it gets a little graphic, and I just want to warn anyone that's maybe sensitive to sexual abuse towards children. I'm gonna cry. So this is kind of where the Band-Aid of life was really ripped off for me. Like, growing up homeless wasn't a big deal to me. Growing up hungry sometimes wasn't a big deal to me. Not being the cleanest kid on the block, who cares? Like, not me. So, I didn't think I would cry this soon. Holy shit. And I'm not crying. Like, I do want to back up just a second to let you guys know I'm not crying because, like, it hurts me still. Because I've dealt with this for a very long time. I've told a lot of people. This has not been a secret. It's just something that I never knew would be able to help so many people. And that's what I am insanely... sorry. That's what I'm insanely passionate about, is wanting to help people. And let people know that, like, you don't have to feel alone, and just because this happened to you, you don't have to feel ashamed. You don't have to let it dictate where your future goes. And that is my biggest thing I want people to take away from this, and so I hope that comes across. So let me get my shit together here and regroup for a second. And I'm not editing on purpose because I don't want to hide the raw emotion from people. So, okay. This particular summer, I was alone with my grandparents. And I don't have, like, dates. I just know the summers, So, we go, my grandparents pick us up. We go do our little, vacation situation. And sometimes when we were traveling, we would come back, like, if there was still, a month of summer left or a few weeks of summer left, we come back to Maricopa and we would stay at my grandparents' house there. And so my grandparents owned their trailer that they lived in. They owned another trailer that my Uncle Toby lived in 2 blocks from them. And then they owned this other house in Maricopa that eventually we ended up moving into when we moved to Maricopa. That was kind of across town, but the whole town itself, when I lived there back then, it was 1,200 people. I don't know how many people live there now, but it's not much bigger. It might be smaller. I don't think it would get bigger because there's nothing out there. But anyways, so we get to their house, and everything's fine. Like, I had been around both of my uncles. I liked both of my uncles at this point. I knew that my mom's younger brother had issues. He was always kind of between my mom and her siblings, like, I mean, they all fucked up, don't get me wrong. None of them were saints. But my Uncle Bob, I don't even know all the issues my Uncle Bob had with drug abuse and things like that. But he had his own issues. He was raising his 3 sons, single dad. And then my Uncle Toby didn't have children, thank the fucking heavens above. But so I was allowed to be around them. Like, there was no reason I wasn't allowed to be around them. No one ever indicated I shouldn't be around them. Not my grandparents, not my mom, not, no one in my family expressed an open dislike for Toby other than my dad. And Toby would be in Sacramento every once in a while. He was kind of just like a drifter and would move over the years, of living in Sacramento. He would pop up in and out of trouble, wanting money, wanting this and that. He was just always kind of the fucking weird uncle. So this particular summer, I had head lice going to my grandparents' house. I had gotten it at school. Me and my mom had gotten it. And so my grandparents had to deal with me having head lice. So I had really long hair at the time. And my grandmother was pissed. I mean, I remember her just being like, because back then they didn't have the plastic comb. I don't know if you ever had lice, but it ain't fun. I had it a couple times when I was in school in Sacramento. And I had really long, thick hair. And so my grandma, she's trying to get it all taken care of. Boo, 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 boo. And back then there's no phones. Like, we would call my mom, like, at the set time on the weekend when we knew she would be home, like maybe on a Sunday afternoon or something, and I could talk to her or whatever. But it was a lot of money to call long distance back then. There was no cell phones, and we were traveling, and people didn't want you using their house phone to call and, whatever. So, like, I would talk to my mom, like, once a week maybe at that point. Well, when I'm on summer vacations, that is. And so my grandma just gets pissed from dealing with this shit on the road, because we're in a motorhome. It ain't easy to wash my hair and comb it out. And back then it just had those little metal combs, and so it's ripping my hair out, and I'm irritated. I'm screaming, fucking crying constantly. So what does my grandma do? She gives me this fucking haircut at 7. She gives me this short ass haircut like I have right now it was a pixie cut. So it was a little tiny bit longer, but not much. And I've lost my tan a lot since I've been in the house for the last freaking couple weeks, but I was a really tan kid. I get really, really tan in the summer. So, like, I get really dark. I swim all the time. Anyways, so I'll get to that later when I get back to Sacramento. That's not part of this exact part of the story, but it is later. So my grandma just, cuts my hair off. Does not ask my mom. Just cuts that shit off and keeps it cut all summer long. I love it eventually. Like, I'm stoked, because my mom, when she would brush my hair, tender-headed, she'd whack me with the brush. Like, they aren't joking. It hurt, and Clara didn't give a fuck. And so, anyways, I'm stoked that I have short hair. It's something I can manage and keep whatever taken care of. Cool. So, whatevs, So, we're at their house, grandparents' house in Maricopa, summer, and my uncle starts coming around. And he has some friends that live, and my people that are from Maricopa that listen, or my Taft people that listen, they're going to know exactly what house I'm talking about. And this house, and if any of you know them, it has nothing to do with the people. This strictly is to do with my uncle and me. No other parties were involved. No other adults knew. No other children knew or were involved. So I do want to throw that out there as well. But he had some friends that lived as you were going to Maricopa, driving through Maricopa to go to the coast, say. and you get to that little hill, and there was a hill on the house, and it was blue. It's not there anymore. It caught on fire. But that house, and I can't remember the people's name right now, and I would never blast their names out anyways, but they had a swimming pool, and my grandparents let my uncle take me swimming over there. And so this is the first time that anything happened. And he basically, would, and this is kind of a warning for all adults that have children, grandchildren, babysit kids, you have nieces and nephews, anything. And I didn't learn this until I went to counseling, but water is typically a big I don't know how to say it. I don't know the words right now. I'm kind of blanking, but it's a big conductor of where assault happens for the first time, because the abuser can make it seem like they're playing with you. They're throwing you, or they're lifting you up, and a hand slips, or I was just playing in the pool situation. I wasn't doing anything. And that is kind of how it started happening. Like, he just started touching me in the pool, and he was touching me underneath the bottoms of my bathing suit, and like, not aggressively at this point, and it was still just with his hands, but I definitely was taken aback by it. I remember being like, this is not right. Like, what's happening here? So that's when, he could tell that I wasn't comfortable. And that's where I guess you would say the grooming came in, and he would do that. So any situation where the swimming, so that became a big part of it. The swimming there was a part of it. And sometimes my grandparents would come, but sometimes they would leave, or sometimes he would just take me by himself. And so I remember it being there, and then I just know that he would tell me, he was basically coaching me and just asking me like simple little questions like, is that okay? And it's like, you don't, at the age of 7, I was just getting ready to turn 7. So this is happening summer, I'm turning 7. And so I'm just like, I didn't know how to answer it. And you feel guilty. And this is also a really weird, fucked up space to take up in your head. And I didn't understand this either until I went to counseling. But you get confused because sometimes it is arousing. And so sometimes, even as a small child, little kids, if you've had little kids, that your children run around, little girls and boys run around with their hands down their pants for a little while. Like, all of my friends' kids, especially the little boys, running around freaking, and they're not doing it for sexual pleasure. They don't know that they're not supposed to be running around tugging on their dinglings, but they're doing it because it feels good. And so, that physical feeling, breaking it away from that mental feeling, you're just too young, and you're not capable, and you're confused, and you don't know what the hell's going on, and you don't know if it's right. It doesn't feel right, but sometimes it feels okay. And this is before things got really adult in the sex part. So eventually he takes me back to his house one day, and he has full on intercourse with me. And I used to be this little, like, wild maniac little kid, just constantly talking, constantly asking questions, just constantly go do, be, just fucking canny energy. And this kind of capped that for me. This kind of stuck me in a period of shock, first and foremost. I mean, it was just like, what? So I don't tell anyone. I don't tell my grandparents. I don't tell my siblings. I don't tell my dad. I don't tell anyone. Any living soul, I do not tell. I just go home and I suck it up. And so my grandparents, they brought me home, and they would bring me home right before school so that my mom could take me to get my school clothes, and, I would be as grown as I was going to be, and clothes would fit me longer and whatever. So my grandparents bring me home, and they bring me back, and my mom was at work when we got back to town. Like, I'll never forget that day. Like, there's a lot about that summer, of course, that I'll never forget, but I remember that day. Like, we walked inside the Villa Club, and we were standing there, and it's really dark in the Villa because it's a bar, and I was super tan from just swimming and it being summer and being down at my grandparents and whatever. And so my mom or my grandma had cut my hair off because of the head lice, and so my mom didn't know. And so we walk in, and we're standing there, and one of my other aunts worked there also, my Aunt Sheila, and my mom and my aunt are working, and me and my grandparents are standing there at the door, and my mom looks over and sees us, and, like, I'm excited, but you didn't interrupt her while she was working, or waiting on people or whatever, so, like, we're just waiting for her to get done doing what she was doing and come over to us. So I'm standing there, and she asked my Aunt Sheila, who's that little Mexican boy with my parents and Audie? And my aunt looks, and she goes, that's Shauna. And my mom said, no, it's not. It's a little Mexican boy. I was the little Mexican boy. So, she gets pissed that my hair's cut, but whatever, gets over it. And whatever, so I come back home, of course, like, can't wait to be back home. Can't wait to be in my safe space, in my space where I know my brothers are there. I know my mom's there. Nothing like this had ever happened to me, even though some of the craziest shit, and I've seen someone get shot and killed, like the Mexican dudes that had me in the laundromat, and my mom coming in with a gun, like, being around prostitutes and just drug dealers and just chaos up to my whole life at that point. Like, and then I go with my grandparents, the place where I really had felt the safest until now. And then this happens, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, fuck me, get me back to Sacramento, So, get back to Sacramento and, go about life. And this is where, for the first time, I wet my bed. After that happened, I only did it once, but I woke up and I had peed in my bed, and I had never done that before. And I didn't know that there was any, like, connection or correlation to being molested and wetting your bed until I was, an adult later on. So, goodness. I'm a little crybaby bitch right now. So, yeah, so I had wet my bed for the first time. My fucking grandma cut my hair off. And so my whole identity was, like, taken from me, changed. None of it was fucking up to me. I didn't get any choice in the matter. And so that year, I had this big realization that summer coming home. I had bought all pink and purple clothes for school because that was like kind of what was in at the time. And I had went and bought, my dad actually took me school clothes shopping, and he let me pick out whatever I wanted. Like, not as much of whatever I wanted, but he let me pick out whatever I wanted. So I come back and like everything's pink and purple, and my mom was like, dude, what's with all the pink and purple? And he's just like, that's what she wanted. Like, so I let her get it, which my dad was cool like that, but my mom was more practical and knew it wouldn't last forever as far as like me being only into pink and purple. But I realized just talking to one of my cousins last year, as a matter of fact, because everyone in my life kind of knew I hated pink and didn't like pink as an adult, as a teenager, fucking whatever. Pink was not in my life, in my library of clothing. It was not rotated. And I like it now. And we were talking about how I like it now. And she's like, that's so weird. Remember when you hated pink? And I realized I hated pink because that was the year I started hating me. And that's what I wore. And my identity was like stripped of me. And so I think back to my time in my life, and I think that's why I shunned pink and didn't want anything to do with it. Me and pink, we're along the road. We're cool. We're kicking it. We wear each other now. I wear pink. We get along. I've forgiven pink for what it did not do to me. So, this is where, everything for me kind of changed, and I turned into little motherfucking asshole Shauna. This is where I turn into Shauna that is protecting herself, because if somebody I knew could do what happened to me, what could somebody I didn't know do to me? And that terrified the shit out of me. So come home, and my mom's dating this dude, right? And so we live in this little house on William Street, still in Sacramento, and it's me, Audie, Justin, my mom, her boyfriend Darwin, and his son James. So it's 6 people, 4 kids, 2 adults, living in a 2-bedroom house. So the back porch was enclosed, but it was screened, but it wasn't enclosed. So we were like, okay, we're overflowing in this motherfucker. What are we gonna do? So they end up like closing in the back porch, and I think they just put plywood up. I don't even think, like, I know they didn't insulate that shit, and that became Justin's room. So Justin moved out into that room, which he wanted because he had a girlfriend and our mom was never home. You put 2 and 2 together. His girlfriend was a senior in high school, and he was, I believe, in 8th grade or 7th grade, because that's how Justin rolled, straight pimp. Anyways, so Justin wanted the outside room. It was connected to the house, but it was, not in the house. And then me, James, and Audie started rotating. So we had bunk beds in our room, and we would rotate. And so when Justin was in there, we would do the same thing. So it would be like somebody would sleep on the floor in a little pallet we had on the floor. Someone would sleep on the bottom bunk. Someone would sleep on the top bunk. And we would just rotate like rotisserie chicken up in that mother. And that's how we lived until James and his dad moved out, because my mom never kept a boyfriend for very long. And it just wasn't good. Alcohol. I don't know if Darwin was on drugs when he lived there, but I'm pretty sure there was probably some light methamphetamine use. And my mom was always a pothead, always drinking. And yeah, so just chaos. And Justin and I and Audie, we had our thing always, and we were good as far as being a unit. Like, we knew it was us. We had some great times. There were, kids. Justin, and this is where, like, so I get to get back to the good part, back in Sacramento. And Justin, you know, he was, I think, so protective over Audie and I and our mom. And just because that was his first time feeling loved and feeling safe and feeling accepted fully, and knowing that he always had somewhere to go and be, and he, no matter what, no matter how many times he went back and lived with his biological mother and things got screwed up for him, and it was always an open door policy with that kid. Like, he was there when he wanted to be, and then he would be there obviously when he needed to be. So him and I got along great. I remember one time, one Christmas, we got in this fight, and it was, I don't know why the year was so good. The year was really good, though, financially for our families for some reason. And by really good, I mean, like, we got, like, several presents each. So we got some really cool presents, and me and Justin got in a fight one night. And I don't even know what started it, guys. I don't even know what started it. But we were home alone. Audie's in the background with his popcorn just cheering us on. And me and Justin go on a fucking destructo spree. It started with me ripping up love letters from his girlfriend. I do remember that. And I'm talking to guys, I'm 8-ish. Okay. And then I had this big, huge remote control truck my dad had got me for Christmas. And I had, like, you know, new clothes. He had this, like, Rambo knife. It was like a camouflage handle with a compass on the end and the big old blade, and, like, inside the knife it had, like, fucking matches, you know, little go out and tweak off in the fucking wilderness by yourself knife. And so, like, I was slamming it into the ground. I broke the blade off. I fucking broke the compass in the end. His grandma bought him a big old boombox with, like, the detachable speakers. I took it by the fucking cord and was swinging it in the street. Boom, breaking it. He took a bunch of my clothes, put them in the toilet and pissed in them. He took a bunch of them and rubbed them in the gutter out in the front. I mean, we destroyed each other's shit. And guess what? We didn't clean it up. And guess what? Claire came home, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And guess what? The whole motherfucking house got woken up because she drove around the corner, because we lived maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 houses from the corner. And she drove around the corner, and she said her headlights, like, just started shining on shit. And then when she, like, got closer to our house, it was just shit everywhere. And she got out and was, like, looking like, what the fuck, and realized it was all of our shit. So she woke us up, made us get up and clean it up, and then told us how we were ungrateful little fucking pieces of shits because nobody in our family had money to buy those types of things, and we all fucking ruined, or me and Justin ruined it all. And we weren't getting shit till she didn't know when. And we were gonna also have to call our family members that we got those presents from and tell them what we did and how ungrateful we were, and that we suck, and that we didn't deserve anything else because we were fucking trash. So that was fun. But that was the only major fight me and Justin ever got in our whole lives, even to this day. He's a dick sometimes, and I like to tell him every once in a while to shut the fuck up. But anyways, that was the biggest fight we got in, and it was something fierce, let me tell you. So, it wasn't, yeah, we would physically beat the shit out of each other, all of us. It was fun. It was good times, man. It's good when it's your brothers. It's not good when it's your parents. So, I mean, really, Sacramento, William Street, we stayed there. And then my mom started getting, you know, arrested at work for fighting and doing stupid shit at work, like, you know, hitting other employees, getting arrested. So after a few times of getting arrested, they tell her, okay, Clara, like, we can't, because my mom was pretty cool with the cops, because she had to call them a lot to come to the villa too, because of, you know, different bullshit riffraff that would be going on around there. So she was pretty cool with the cops, but then they would have to arrest her when she would beat someone up or, you know, assault and this and that. But they would only make her stay in jail, like, overnight, and then they would release her. Well, the last time she got arrested, they told her, hey, we can't just arrest you again and like let you go. Like it's going to be more serious next time, whatever. So that kind of like, whoa, and then the Villa Club was going to close and the boys were getting older. And meanwhile, I'm going back and forth, the next summer, and I'm being molested every summer that I go back to Maricopa. So 7, 8, 9 years old, being molested during the summers, and still haven't told anyone about it. And it only gets I guess it was expected more on his end. He expected it more from me. And I didn't find my voice yet. I didn't have a voice. I didn't know that I held the power because I was still a child. And that, was very, very just devastating once I knew what my options were. But it's just how it shook out. And I don't sit here and what if, because if I did that, I'd probably be in an insane asylum, honestly. So, my brothers are getting to the point where they're like 15 years old, 16. They're coming up on that age. And I am in 5th grade, and my mom, things are just shit. And so we go and we live with this lady. Her name was Trudy, and we're still in Sacramento, and we call her Aunt Trudy. And she was just an older lady that my grandpa had known, my mom's biological dad. There was another bar that was next to the Villa Club called Tiny's, and Trudy was always in there, and that is how I know that my family knows her. And I think that's where I think my family met her, maybe, I don't know, but she ended up being around a lot, and she would live with us sometimes, and I knew her my whole life at this point. And so like we would go live with her on and off too when we were, struggling, didn't have any money, were homeless, in between places. Just it was a thing where we lived with her several times throughout my life until I was 10. So there's this one time where my brother and my mom get in a fight, and we're living with Trudy in this little 2-bedroom disgusting ass trailer. And Trudy's an alcoholic, and my mom and I share the front bedroom. Trudy sleeps on her couch all the time anyways, always did before we even lived with her. And Audie had the back bedroom at this point, and I think Justin was living with his grandmother at this point. And my brother had been in his room and had found a bag of dope on his bed, and all fucking hell broke loose. And him and my mom get in this huge fight, and he's cussing my mom upside, up one side, down the other, and she's telling him, it's not mine. I had no idea what they were talking about. I just knew that they're fucking fighting. And she's like, it's not mine. And he's like, yeah, fucking right. Whose would it be? Like, how would it get on my bed? And they're going back and forth, and I have no idea, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then my aunt is in the background, and she's like, Audie, like, it's not hers. I'll put my hand, and her famous saying was, I'll put my hand on a stack of Bibles. I'll put my hand on a stack of Bibles. Like, that was Trudy's fucking thing. So, she's like, I'll put my hand on a stack of Bibles. Like, it's not your mom's, blah, 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 whatever. So this fight happens. So my mom's fucking crying. Everybody's upset. Audie's pissed. Audie takes off. So I'm like, what is going on? And so my mom leaves. Well, then she comes back. And when she comes back, I'm begging her to stay. I'm like, please just stay. Just fucking stay. Just stay. And she won't stay. She won't stay. She's like, no, I'm leaving. And I'm like, well, where are you going to go? And I'm like, you don't have any money to fucking go do anything. Like, where are you going to go? And so I had $67 saved up. And my mom, when she worked and got tips, she would bring all of her ones home, and on $1 bills there's letters inside of the little circles, on the left hand side, and we all picked a different letter, and mine were K's, I'm sorry. And so I remember I had $67 and I went in the house and I got it for her and I was like, please just go get a hotel. She's like, no, I'm going to go down to the river. And so she goes inside and she gets her gun. So I'm like immediately thinking, this is the last time I'm going to see my mom. I remember thinking my mom was going to go kill herself because of how distraught she was, how angry she was, how upset she was. And I just remember thinking, like, if she takes that gun and she goes down to the river, this is going to be the last time I see my mom. And oh, it pissed me off. It pissed me off at her. It pissed me off at Audie. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. And she didn't take my money. She left and took the gun. And she did come back the next day. So she didn't kill herself. And that was just another point of kind of explosion, and just we knew things weren't good, and like we didn't know what the hell's going on, or I didn't know what the hell's going on, and no one wanted me to know what was going on. And then next thing I know, we're being told that we're moving to Maricopa. And this is where I really, really, really fucking lost my shit and immediately turned into anger, and because I had just gotten back there from summer. This is October. Well, this is September. I just started my 5th grade year. And I'm told that I'm going to go to Maricopa and live there. And live in the house that my grandparents owned, the other house that they owned on the other side of town. So I just lose my fucking mind and immediately turn into this angry little ball of ridiculousness. And we go to Maricopa and I leave my safe space, which is insane because it's full of drugs and fucking alcohol and homelessness, and that's where I wanted to be. That's where I felt safest, and I had no choice. It was not up to me. I couldn't live with my dad. I didn't want to live with my dad. I wanted to be with my mom and my brothers. I didn't want to not be with the people I've been with from day one to now. And it was where I knew that life was gonna really, really, really take a hard fucking turn for me. And I had no option in my head but to buck up and just fucking take it. And so I did. And in October of 1990, my grandparents showed up with a truck and trailer, and we packed all of our shit up and we left for fucking Maricopa. And the next episode, we'll talk about how that all went down and what comes next for little 10-year-old Shauna. And I really, really want to say that I appreciate every single one of you for listening. I've gotten so much feedback. I appreciate it. I've gotten some questions. I've gotten some text messages, comments. And so if you guys please find any value or any type of message in this story, or any type of perseverance that you want to share with someone that has had something similar happen to them, or maybe they're struggling and they have a hard time talking about it, just, encourage them to maybe listen, to maybe reach out privately. I don't need, I don't want anyone to think that I'm going to blast their private matters or judge them, or even, I'm here to comfort. I'm here to let you be you, let you get something out that maybe you've never shared, or maybe you never even thought you wanted to share. But I know for me, sharing has been the most therapeutic thing that I've ever done. And not just about being sexually abused, but sharing in general. So please continue to listen and come along and like and engage. And I appreciate all of it. And I will see you guys next week. And here we go. Thanks for watching me cry a lot.